Let's now invite political analyst Lori Turnbull in the conversation. Lori, great to have you on the show. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's not going to be a fun caucus meet for the Prime Minister. Oh boy, there are a host of issues that need to be addressed amongst the insecurity of some of the sitting MPs about their seats. But first, let's discuss how do you think the Prime Minister will be able to address the issue of the NDP and the path forward for this government if it survives till June 2025?
Sure. I mean, I think this, as others have said, this doesn't mean that the government falls next week when the House comes back. It could mean that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means that we're in more of a period of ordinary time in a minority government where a government has to work with parties on an ad hoc basis as issues come up, as votes come up. There's nothing guaranteed. The government has to find a partner. And so that could be the NDP. That could be the Bloc Québécois. I think we can probably guess that it's not going to be the Conservatives. But because the NDP has departed this agreement, it means that there are potential changes. If this parliament survives any longer, there are changes to the legislative calendar. And so things they could have taken for granted, now they can't. It could be that things are going to take longer. It could be that the NDP are going to try to extract some sort of concession, which could cost money. The Bloc might try to do the same thing. So a whole bunch of uncertainty comes up, even if the Liberal government is able to manage for another period of time. And so I think the MPs will have questions for the Prime Minister about how that will be managed. And amidst all of the chaos and the drama, how will the Liberals get some clear message out to voters that resonates with people before the next election?
You know, clearly the Liberals could have done a whole lot more this summer. Many have been critical, not much was done. We know that the Liberals have floundered in the polls for more than a year. In one of the recent polls by Angus Reid, we'll pull that up, that shows that Liberals are at 21%, Conservatives at 43%, NDP at 19%. Talk to us about how ineffective the Prime Minister has really been in terms of taking on Pierre Poilievre.
It seems to me that the approach has been to pretend that nothing's wrong. And so even after the by-election loss in Toronto St. Paul's, which was significant, and the MPs know that, the Liberal Party brass, they all know this is a massive problem. This is an indicator of a potential disaster in the next election to lose a safe seat like that. It seems to me that the Prime Minister has kind of tried to downplay that. From the get-go, he didn't meet with caucus, and perhaps that was, who knows, maybe that was the right call for him. Maybe meeting with the full caucus and in the heels of that would have been a problem for him. But it just seems to me from day one, there's been a downplay strategy. Now, he has met with regional caucuses. He's had conversations with MPs. I think he's done some behind the scenes work to try to set people's mind at ease to say, look, we've got a plan here. But when the numbers don't change, and now with everything else, right, with the NDP pulling away, with Jeremy Broadhurst deciding to step aside, it just seems like thing after thing is piling on. And it contributes to all of these factors together feeling like the ship's just taking on a lot of water.
Indeed. In fact, those were the two major blows this week itself. But let's talk about, since you brought about the Toronto riding, with by-elections inching closer, September 16th, Montreal and Winnipeg, if the Liberals were to lose both, after losing the Toronto riding, do you think that this will further strengthen calls for a change in leadership altogether?
I mean, I think if the NDP were still on board, then yes. Then, in the event that Montreal doesn't happen for the Liberals, I think then there would be renewed calls for the Prime Minister to think about what he can do with the time the Liberals have left. If the Liberals could count on the NDP support until October of 2025, that would give them the space to figure out, how are they going to do this? How are they, they could actually have the time to find a new leader. It would be really tight, but they could kind of do it. But now that the NDP aren't on board, it means that the Liberals would have to try to replace the leader without knowing that they have the confidence in the House of Commons. And I don't know how that works. They'd have to try to prorogue, perhaps, which is going to be ugly. And it's going to lead to calls that, the Liberals are hiding. And so I don't know about that. I think if they don't win Montreal, the call might be to go to an election and face what's coming, as opposed to try to change leaders, because I think, honestly, it's too late.
It's too late. Okay. One quick question before I let you go, because what's interesting is Mark Carney at the caucus addressing the meet. What is that indicative of?
Well, I think, honestly, there has been so much speculation over the past number of years about Mark Carney's future. Back in 2020, When Bill Morneau left, there was speculation about, the Prime Minister's having conversations with Mark Carney. Honestly, to the extent that some people are paying attention to this whole side story about Mark Carney, most people, I think, aren't. Most people may not even know who this is or what this is about. But for those who do, this has been a long time of the back and forth, and then maybe he's involved, maybe he's not, maybe he wants to be leader, maybe he wants to be finance minister. I don't know. I think this story has gone on too long, and I think he'll talk to the MPs about how to grow the economy, and then we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens, but we leave it at that for now. Lori Turnbull, appreciate your time and expertise always, Lori. Thank you.
Thank you.